So good. Yeah, you're starting this very nice. Yeah. So what's the idea behind this?
Okay, so the idea behind this is to one, create awareness within the entire AR, VR, MR ecosystem in terms of
Right.
something that you are doing with XRCom, something quite similar to it. But then we have
Right.
chosen
Right.
three
Right.
different aspects to it. One is the business talks, one is the technology talks,
Right.
and one is the marketing
Right.
talks. How we can, on all
Right.
three of
Right.
these, take steps ahead, how each one of us
Right.
could learn from each other so that we boom
Very
this
nice.
implementation ecosystem.
We had met last time, the podcast when I had interviewed, and you had told me that you wanted to do this, and I was like, oh, we need more of these, because the only problem with the ecosystem is awareness, because people still are, because the media is painting a picture of the virtual reality, this augmented reality, this, so everybody is excited, but accessibility is not there, awareness is not there, the awareness of what it can do currently is not there. I mean, so people, with the media always paints a picture, okay, oh, this is what virtual reality will do, and it's possible, but nobody knows, okay, oh, there is things are which is happening right now. There are businesses which are implementing it right now. There's education industry which is now suddenly kind of understood that, oh, this could be a tool. Maybe not VR. Maybe VR is a little bit more expensive, but obviously you can use augmented reality, and you start using it for education even with your phone. So all those, so very good, yeah, very good. All the very best for it.
Yeah. So just to give introduction to everyone who's listening to
Right,
this, welcome
right,
to Talks 2.0. It's a talks about everything around next generation technologies. We see this as a platform to discover everything next gen. And then how do you create businesses around it? How do you create implementations? How do you around it? How do we create an entire ecosystem around the entire thing? Today we have Eddie, the founder of XR Bazaar, XRCom, Immersion VR Fest, and Change Transform India. To give you an introduction to each one of them, XRCom is an AR VR company with multiple business legs and a 10-year vision plan to build India's entire XR ecosystem. Their goal is to generate investors, enterprises, technologists, policymakers, marketers, plus consumers under one collective roof to shape the entire XR industry. You can visit them on www.xrcom.in. Just midway through the introduction, where did you get the entire idea? What was the seed that thought that there needs to be something like this?
Pankaj, first of all, thank you for having me on this show, and wish you the very best. And so last time, like when we had a conversation last time, I think maybe it was a couple of months back, and I was interviewing you, and this time the other way around, you're interviewing me,
Yes.
and you had told me that you would want to, you're keen on starting up something like this, where the platform would be to, the idea of the platform would be to reach out to uh, people and create awareness. So yes, XROM, it's not XRCom. XROM was started with the same intention. So I got into virtual reality back in 2016, when one of my clients asked me if I could create content for them, like virtual reality live action content, and that's when I discovered virtual reality. And then I got really enthusiastic about it, because I read a little bit about it, and I realized that back in 2016, the ecosystem was in such an nascent stage. But of those visionary people in virtual reality at that point of time, painted a picture of what VR could be. And I read that, and I read some, these futurists who had written about the possibilities of what virtual reality could become. And then I got into it, and it was like a rabbit hole. And then I got excited, and then I understood the possibilities of virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, how transformative it could be. And that's the reason I got into it. I mean, I put my entire my to give you a little backstory, I've been invested in the media industry. I've been a music composer, so I used to compose for advertising, jingles, radio commercials, and things like that. I've also done a couple of Bollywood feature films. But I stopped everything when I discovered virtual reality, because I thought that it's one of those technologies which could be completely transformational to mankind. And it's so deep that it will also open up. If you're a curious soul, you'll get to understand what life is, what a physical world is made of, and things like that. So it's a little bit deeper than just being a technology, because of virtual reality. Then I got into a little bit of quantum physics and quantum mechanics, and that's when I realized. Oh, so I'm not getting into that, but yes, I mean, 2016 I discovered virtual reality. I understood the potential of it, and but back then, when I created the content, I realized that the ecosystem was not there. It was not a sustainable industry. So my thing was, oh, okay, how do we make this sustainable? I knew that it would take maybe like 5 years, 10 years, or maybe 15 years to mature. So how do you make it sustainable, for everyone? And that's the reason from 2016, whatever you see I've done is with the intention to build an ecosystem. Right from the first thing that I did was Immersion VR Fest, and that was to build an ecosystem so that all the startups could come together, the marketeers could come together and understand that, oh wow, this is such an important technology, and you could leverage it to create experiential advertising. I got a bunch of investors to come together so that they could look at the possibilities of investing into a technology which could give them really high returns in the future. So whatever I've done is, or whatever I've set up is the intention of idea to build an ecosystem which would grow the ecosystem, and then obviously even me as a startup would make money. So Immersion VR Fest to XR Home, which is a digital news website, and it also has a podcast, XR Home podcast, which is India's first AR VR podcast. And then obviously, which I've started right now, is XR Bazaar, because I mean, all these things I've done was to create an ecosystem. And XR Bazaar is an AR VR marketplace, which has got an e-commerce business leg, and it's got a consulting play and things like that. So to create now, to leverage the business opportunity, because now, after so many years, thanks to COVID, I mean, with COVID, obviously the people have said, "Okay, oh, this has disrupted the entire world so badly." But if you see, COVID has created an opportunity for the resilient lot. It has made people realize, and it's put a spotlight on technology, all frontier technology. And suddenly virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality is so big because AR, VR, MR as a technology, is a tool. It's got everything bundled to take the remote health, remote education, remote work conversation forward. So yes, I'm super excited about AR, VR, MR, and that's the reason I got into it.
I see we've done a lot of amazing work within the space, and I'm sorry for the word, but it's XRO. And then you have XR Banga, then you have XR Studios, which essentially is for experiential content around the entire experiences, right?
Right.
Over the entire journey of yours so far, you've been able to interact with a lot of these AR, VR leaders. Uh, can you name some of those few leaders that you have been able to interview, work together with, and what has been your key learning from all of them?
Yeah, so I've interviewed close to, I think, 60 plus individuals from India and around the world. And what I've learned, that each of these entrepreneurs or technologists are visionary, because and they're pioneers in their own field, because only the visionary and pioneers would get into vesting their life into something which is a little futuristic, right? So each because AR, VR, MR till now is in a nascent stage, in all fairness, and there are all of these technologies which is converging, which will possibly in the next few years will make this technology really big, and it'll open up huge economical benefits. But from 2018, when I 2019, I think I started the podcast till now, whoever I've interviewed, I think all have been exceptional entrepreneurs or exceptional technologists who really understand the potential. So it's very difficult to pick and choose just maybe one or two from there. But like I said, all of them been, and what I've got to learn is they all of them are resilient, and that's what I take from there. And yes, there is so much I get to know, when I interview people, I get to know that, oh, wow, there is so much. Like my last interview, I interviewed this guy called Eric Vazzoli, and he's from this company called Interaptics, and he's building uh, a tool for haptics where an engine to build haptics, for anyone and everyone, and all what you thought was science fiction is becoming a science reality. Like first it was like, oh, how could you even, we were so restricted to a 2D medium, right? So people, when you tell them about virtual reality, they would say like, kya baat kar raha hai yaar, matlab how can you see all the world around, but then, you make them wear the VR headset, and they are like, oh wow, you can now look all around exactly like you can see in your real life. And then I should tell them that, someday you will be able to touch feel the virtual world, and the virtual world will be able to touch feel you. And they're like, kya baat kar raha hai, kyun paka raha hai? That's not possible, right? Because how can you touch and feel what is not there? But haptic feedback, which has been going on since quite some time now, is now being productized. And again, like I said, this is so in a nascent stage where you are being able to touch and feel the virtual world. We are getting into a world where all of physical all everything is going to be challenged. We are getting into a magical world, and that's what is exciting. That's one side of it. Now how businesses can leverage this is a huge uh, Pandora's box which is opening up right now. I mean, with your virtual reality and haptic feedback training, surgical, where doctors can actually, who are maybe medical students who want to understand the medical students, it starts with for them to understand a human body. And then, at least in India, I've read that, the medical institutes have to wait for human cadavers, because it's difficult to get a dead body. At times you have to wait for a cadaver, and if there's one cadaver, then you have to, like, there are like 100 medical students trying to gather around and trying to kind of figure out, oh, this is the organs and stuff like that. But with virtual reality, you don't have to wait for that. You have an entire cadaver right in front of you, a digital cadaver. Plus, with haptic feedback, you can touch and feel the body, and with precision. If you're making an incision, you can feel that incision. How cool is that? It's not just for the use cases is across, training, even gaming stands to be completely redefined. So that's what is exciting. And I just gave you one example of what, because this was my last conversation I've had. But like, there is so many exciting things. Like, I had a conversation with you. It was a lovely conversation. And then I remember I had met you in 2016 at one conference somewhere in Fort, and I had this conversation. I saw you on the stage, and then you were talking about your Ajna lens and your vision at that point in time. At that point in time, you didn't have your headset, but the vision was there. And cut to now 2020, you have your headset out there in the market. You are doing some really great thing. So it takes passion, resiliency, and a vision about what this technology can bring on board. And I have been privileged to interview people like you, and entrepreneurs around the world who I think are laying the future framework for how the rest of the world is going to not just view content, but experience content, interact with content. So I'm really super excited about that, all the conversations.
So I also see that there is a huge potential for XR technology. But what is, let's say you're speaking to a lot of them are working on the cutting edge. What is the current state of this technology? One, globally, and second, within India and Asia region. How is there a comparison? Are they ahead? Are we behind? Are we on the same lines? What's your thought on the entire space?
Yeah, so somehow, well, it's a no-brainer that I mean that US is leading because only one reason is their ethos, where the investing or the support community is extremely vibrant because they are investors, the government take high risk, and so that's the reason. If you see, most of the companies who are it's not just in AR VR, it's across emerging technologies, whether it's artificial intelligence, AR VR, MR, quantum computing, synthetic biology. America is a company which has always been leading because the ecosystem is very vibrant. So yes, America is leading, and then obviously in Asia, you see China is leading, though China is working in a complete silo. You don't really get to know much about what the smaller ones are doing, because I'm sure the smaller ones are doing really excellent. You hear about possibly the Picos and like maybe the Nreal and stuff like that, but there is some really cool things happening in China, and I wouldn't be surprised if in another 5 years or decades time something extra exceptional comes out of China. And I wouldn't be surprised if there is a flip of the global superpower from US to China, because they are racing to achieve a goal or agenda set by their government, and their investment or the community is becoming super strong. Now India, the rest of the world is also doing very good. India, I think, is doing decently well. The reason I think the rest of the world is also doing decently well is because media. I mean, thanks to internet, I mean, it has given anybody and anyone an opportunity who wants to understand about technology can get online, right? I mean, like platforms like XRO platforms like that. You are building, and there's so much give around the world. I mean, it's not just us, I mean, it's creating an accessibility of anybody who's curious to know more about this technology. So yes, I mean, in some ways, the internet has democratized uh, technology, and if anybody like India is doing pretty decent, but the risk averse nature of our investment community and tangible support from the government, which is still not being seen, is the reason maybe things are a little slow. But I'm super excited about what the startup community is doing, because of the interactions that I've had with the startup community. I don't see them waiting for anyone. They are extremely driven, and they do understand that we are in a cusp of some amazing changes, where the startup community have the potential to create these huge companies. The traditional companies, if you see, somehow are not spending on innovation and R&D because they function in a very traditional way, so they and they are happy because they've got their funds, so they don't have a problem. Now the startup community are the hungry lot, and they are the ones who are creating really cool startups. So I'm privileged to have uh, uh, been talking to and communicating with Indian startups in the AR VR space who's doing something really really fantastic. So from my perspective or vantage point, I only see that the only thing which is stopping us from growing or creating a global company in any of these technological space is the risk averse natures of the investing community in India, and a tangible government support. And yes, I think we need these are the only two drawbacks, I think. Otherwise, I think it's another few years, maybe we will have a global company coming out of India very, very soon, and you're doing something really cool. There are so many others who are just the products are ready. It's just that it needs like fine tuning and that go to market strategy. And I think we'll have in another few years we'll have some great companies coming out of India.
So, as I understand, the risk-averse nature of the entire Indian investment ecosystem is one something that's holding back. Secondly, is the government. Um, your thoughts on why is the Indian ecosystem that risk-averse? Is it because we do not have successful hardware startups, or is it because uh, the faith on the AR/VR ecosystem is not enough within the investment ecosystem, or is there some other reason?
No, so yes, see, like I said, the American ethos is different. Their thinking is different. So it starts with the core nature of like the leaders of the community. Like for example, if Anderson Horowitz, they invest in the future because they understand that they're not they're looking at investing in startups which has maybe long horizon but have bold and audacious vision, you know. So if there's the leaders of that community are doing that, the rest of the ecosystem are maybe herd mentality, because even VCs, if you see, it's herd mentality, right? I mean, if the leaders are investing into something and they see higher return over there, the rest of the VCs or the angel investors follow the same principles, because America is investing in the future. India is investing in startups, which is giving you value right now in over a 2-3 period horizon. And they are very clear that this is what we want. I mean, they invest in startups, which is like, okay, this is my bandwidth, and this is what I want. My startups, I want money in 3 to 5 years time, three years time, and that's it. And I want to exit, and that's story over. And that's good. I mean, I don't have any problem, because I do understand. When you invest in money, there is a certain amount of equity which is not rare. You're investing in it, so you want that equity back, and you want to chill. So since this thing is being followed, or the country, I'm not saying we don't have investors in India who don't understand that the need to invest in the future. We are now, there are quite a lot of investors who understand that, but they also know that when you invest in the future, if the horizon is longer, it could be 5 years, it could be 10 years, it could be 15 years. So that is not being supported. So that I think is a major problem. As far as the hardware, I don't think that's the problem, because I mean, see, at this point in time, the world is becoming hyper connected, and it is best to reach out to those ecosystems. For example, if China is great, why do you want to do the Makajmari? Reach out from there and package your stuff with stuff from there, because it's easily available. Those guys have vested in those industry for such a long time, and they've excelled. For you to start investing in there, it will take a certain amount of years. I'm not saying not to invest in hardware. Please do. But if something is available, and if your hardware just requires a bit of accessories, which is easily available from other places. I mean, if I'm building an hardware, I would make sure that I reach out to each and every pockets of the world where I can access those different parts which I need for my hardware, because the whole thing is that the world is going to a place where collaboration is going to be the most important thing. The ones who do not collaborate, sadly, I see them, phasing out, because the future is collaborative. The future is, and especially because of COVID has made geography history. You don't need to be in a certain location of the world. You could be at any corner of the world, and if you have the desire and intent and you understand the power of collaboration, you get like 10 people that has more knowledge than you, has got more leverage than you can leverage them, and you can grow yourself. So for me, I've always been a person who understands that collaboration is the future, and so there is so much opportunity. So hardware, I don't see opportunity, my problem. So my main thing is that uh, the thinking needs to change. There needs to be a complete system change where the government, instead of just creating these conferences or units where they talk about emerging technology, and pocket mark a certain kind of budget which never really sees the actual the ecosystem. That needs to be the policy, the the bureaucratic nature of the long nature of that. From maybe even if you create a policy for it to actually implementation of it, that timeline needs to shorten. The reason it needs to shorten is because we are in the cusp of some amazing change which is going to happen in this decade. All of these technologies which is in a nascent stage, I believe could mature. And that's the reason, if you see, America, China are in a race to acquire that technology which will give them an advantage. And if the other countries don't understand that, they will be left out of the party, because some great things are happening. And we need to completely tap onto that and hold on to those things. And this is the opportunity, the ones, like whether it's businesses, whether it's individuals, whether it's investors, whether it's the government, there is this 10 years from here, this decade is going to be the most important decade in human history, because from here onwards nothing like this has ever happened. When I have a conversation, people say like, oh, we've always, when maybe in 1800 or 1900 you said, oh, there is so much change happening, we're going to change the world. But nothing like this has ever happened. This 10 years is going to be that 10 years which is going to completely change the world. Everything which was science fiction is becoming science reality or science fact. And Arthur C. Clarke has quoted, his quote is that a growing technology will make, I'm not getting this thing, so maybe you'll have to just kind of like take the quote about Arthur C. Clarke about how technology will create magic. So basically what he's trying to say is that science fiction is becoming science reality, and we are getting into the magical world.
I was just
And if
looking
we
it up. It says any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from
well
magic.
from magic, and we are getting into the magical world. This 10 years, there is going to be humongous economical benefit which is going to open up. So enterprise needs to understand that you need to not just talk about it, you need to spend in R&D. You don't need to just go and talk about at conferences about, oh, this is so cool, and just make your LinkedIn profile go big. You need to actually get your hands dirty, invest in AR, VR, MR, understand how it can leverage for your business. So this is it. You need to now get into all these emerging tech if you want to be relevant in the next few years.
Picking up from that, let's say you had to invest within the XR ecosystem. What are those specific bets that you would take on, that you would spend your money on, that you see as huge potential within the ecosystem?
So I started in the content space. I built my own 16 camera rig. I built a own robotic dolly, and at that point of time, content was not such a big thing. But going forward, I think in another 3 years time maximum, I'm not even, yeah, possibly maybe 3 years time, some of the biggest companies are coming up with their headsets, and what headset is going to do is that it's going to converge your mobile phones and a computer into one single wearable device. You won't be going to offices with your your computer, and or you won't even be needing a phone. You'll have this one single wearable device. We're entering the spatial computing. Content is going to be one of the biggest thing, where everywhere you look, there'll be, you won't need a television. Everywhere you look could be your television. You're walking in the street, and those static advertising could come alive, so and Geo, Facebook, Microsoft, Samsung, Lenovo, Sony, Magic Leap, Unreal, Ajna Lens, everybody is creating headsets. Now, for the headset, you will require content. So I would place my bet on content. I would invest in content, because I would, because in India especially, I see there is a lack of a content studio, a immersive experiential content studio, because advertising agencies are going to understand that the 2D medium is going to give way to the 3D medium, and there's going to be a need for content, for experiential advertising. There's going to be the, possibly Bollywood movies are going to be consumed in AR, VR, MR. The for us, sport is a religion. you know we could, maybe in another 3 years to 5 years time, you won't be sitting in a stadium, you'll be sitting at your home, but you'll feel like you're sitting in a stadium, and you'll be watching Virat Kohli or whoever those cricketers are at that point of time, playing cricket, or you will be in a movie theater but sitting at home. So content, I would definitely invest in content. But it's not just the AR VR space. I'm super excited about autonomous, like the future of mobility. So I would definitely consider the future of mobility also, like maybe electric vehicle, autonomous vehicle, battery pack, and maybe, yeah, battery charging stations. I mean, there is so much opportunity that it's just that, because I also do a future tech podcast called Change Transform India, where I have the privilege of interviewing some of the leaders, fronting these exponential technologies. So yes, there is, the world is getting so exciting, and I'm super excited. I wish to transfer this excitement to the government, the investment community, because they are the one, if they join hands with the real talent, the startup community, and the ecosystem around, infrastructure could be created. And once the infrastructure is created, who knows? I've been talking about China becoming the global superpower. Who's stopping India from becoming the global superpower if we take the right decisions?
Awesome. So let's talk about broader technologies, right? What are the top three technologies that you see has the highest impact on human lives? Like, what are the top three technologies that are coming up and you think have the highest impact on human lives and will really change the human life?
Uh, so there's a couple of things. I mean, I could definitely. I mean, there's I see a complete change in the future of mobility, and in the future of mobility, there is couple of things around it. There is, when you talk about future of mobility, we talking about possibly the electric vehicles at this point of time. What that will do is completely change the way we have been impacting our world. When you talk about future of mobility, you talk about cleaner, greener, sustainable energy, which is the most important thing at this point in time. So when you talk about electric vehicle, you know that you will take out the fossil fuel out of the ecosystem, which has been destroying the world. You'll talk about cleaner energy, so you'll talk about solar, you talk, wind, thermal, and those kind of stuff. And then you go into electric vehicle. But electric vehicle is the start of what's coming next. What's coming next is autonomous vehicle. After that, what's coming next is eVTOLs. eVTOLs are flying vehicles, which is already happening at this point in time. So like I said, in India, I had the privilege of interviewing. I'm not getting the name right. I'm so very sorry about this. So there's this IIT professor who's got a company, and I'm not getting the name. So he's looking at building an eVTOL. So that's a space which I'm super excited about, the future of mobility, which obviously is going to create huge transformation, because what it'll do is that commute will be super smooth. That I'm talking about autonomous vehicle. Imagine a car where there's no steering wheel. I'm talking about level 5 autonomous vehicle where there's no wheels. There's no driving wheel. So you have a vehicle. There's 4 or 5 guys sitting, and the heads-up display. The glasses have in the car have stories, augmented reality, virtual reality, playing out. I mean, that's a fantastic future. I mean, and where you don't have to go through the stress of today's traffic, where you're honking, and that's way out future. I mean, that's possibly 15 years, But I'm super excited about that as a technology, future of mobility. That's one. Second, obviously, is going to be artificial intelligence, because I think it binds everything together. Artificial intelligence is that technology which is going to like bind everything. I mean, it's going to converge, your autonomous vehicles, AR, VR, MR, synthetic biology. And it's going to be one technology which is going to bind everything together, and it's going to make a life extremely easy. I see from my perspective that in this decade, we are going to be over dependent on machines. It started with refrigerators, it started with microwaves, it started with washing machines. We would say, okay, because human beings are lazy, like अरे हम लोगों को काम नहीं करना है, ठीक है ना, वो है तो मतलब that's oh, those are dumb machines, but who do very good things for us. We are getting into a world, we're getting into intelligent machines. We right now, we with the artificial intelligence space, we are in a very narrow space where AI can do only one thing, but it can do one thing exceptionally well. When I say exceptionally well, AI at this point in time has kind of like left behind human race, or like some of the smartest humans in a narrow space. But we are broaching and pushing on that, and we are maybe in the next, I don't know, next couple of decades, we can go to AGI, where we'll have intelligent machines. But in this decade itself, we'll have machines which will be doing, like for example, GPS. You at one point in time when you are traveling, you would get down from the car and say, भाई साहब किधर जाना है, इसे लेफ्ट मारो, अरे भाई साहब उधर जाना है, राइट मारो, अरे भाई साहब मैं वो किधर है. So that would take a lot of time. Today with GPS you'll never get lost. So we are dependent on that technology. What is coming right now in the next 10 years is equally exciting and scary. So artificial intelligence in the next 10 years is going to create infrastructure which will make human more dependable on them. What comes after 10 years is going to get magical, and that I don't want to get into it. It also gets scary, and it also becomes an existential threat. But artificial intelligence as a technology is I'm super excited by. And the third piece which I'm super excited is synthetic biology. We humans are made out of 3.4 billion base pairs of DNA. And Craig Venter back in 2000 has kind of sequenced the entire human genome code, or DNA is the reason we are what we are, right from our eye color to a beard to a hair to a body structure to the health. What we have we the problems that we have, or the benefits that we have with the health wise, is because of a DNA. 2000 we understood what a human DNA is capable of, or what it does, how it expresses the proteins it creates, and what it makes us. We are now broaching the subject of manipulating those DNA with CRISPR-Cas9 technology. CRISPR-Cas9 technology is genetic engineering. We've been given the tool where we can cut and splice a DNA. For example, if you've got like cancer or HIV or specific disease, you can take that DNA up out from the system, and you can take and you can put in another DNA and things like that. So in a very basic way, I'm super excited about genetic engineering, because in the next maybe 2 decades time, we will be able to re-engineer life or re-engineer humanity. We have already re-engineered dogs that can glow. We've already, yeah, dogs that can glow. We have already engineered like, you know, mice that can live longer, and and uh, things that can be regenerated. For example, like a lizard, if you hit a lizard and the tail drops off, but we are kind of figuring out that genetic makeup from a lizard and kind of implementing it into other species. So we are playing God. Yes, you might say that, but in another 20 years, it's going to be a point where we understand, not completely, but what the DNA does. And just imagine, I mean, yes, it can get scary, where we'll be able to, or babies, could be designer babies, or health, the entire health problems that we have can be deleted. We can go into a world where age reversal can happen, where humans will not have to age, because the only reason we age is because of a senescent cells which multiply. And people have kind of the top scientists or gerontologists, as they say, the ones who are vested in understanding or controlling human aging, they have figured out different ways to control aging. So I'm super excited about artificial intelligence, synthetic biology, and the future of mobility.
Completely wide spectrum, and I think all the examples, the applications that you have mentioned will have like really, really huge impact on the entire civilization. Very
Right.
true. In your conversation so far with all of the speakers that you've been interviewing, uh, what is the key learning that will help a new entrepreneur who wants to get into new age technologies that he needs to ingrain before he gets into the business? Let's say someone wants to start a company within the new technology space. What are the few things that he needs to learn in or needs to have so that he'll be really successful in that?
As an entrepreneur, first thing obviously is that always get into something what you want to do. First, you make up your mind that okay, this is what you want to do. See, invest into it as mentally understand what the problem is. I mean, what the technology is, what the spectrum is, where is the problem, and and if you can find a solution for it. So I think that's the first step for an entrepreneur. I mean, figure out from your perspective that okay, this is the technology. Maybe if it's an AR, VR, MR, if you take just VR, understand the technology and create understand that okay, if this is what virtual reality, what problem that I can solve with virtual reality. That would be the first step, because for every entrepreneur, it's unique, because you've got to find that fit, that okay, you take this technology is never going to be doing everything. It's the idea in your head, how you leverage that technology is the most important thing. So first thing first is you have to come up with that idea that, oh, okay, this technology is there. How will I use that technology, the tool, to solve a problem? So I think as an entrepreneur, my first, to whoever is listening, the first thing would be to, I mean, look at the technology and create a marriage where, okay, with this technology as a tool, I will solve this problem, and be as narrow as possible. So you hit that, and then obviously go to maybe create more co-founders, and then create that product, which a go-to-market strategy, and take it from there.
Interesting. And I felt like within our journey as well, we recognize that solving some key narrow niche problems is wherein you start really creating businesses. Because when you give that value, okay, you're solving a problem, that's when you add value to them, and then they can add value back to you in terms of monetary rewards and other things as well.
Right, right.
Let's say now we move from entrepreneur to a developer within, let's say, the XR ecosystem. If he wants to get into this space, what are the steps that he has to get? What are the steps that he has to do to get into this space? What would you recommend?
So I'm not a developer, and as an entrepreneur, obviously I had the freedom to have developers working for me. But as a developer, if you want to understand, I mean, the net is full of information. I mean, you need to figure out where you're good at, whether it's augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality. Then there are these. You need to look at the tools. Most of the tools that you have, the engines are actually free for you to use, whether it's Unity or Unreal, and then there are other engines also now. But you need to, as a developer, you need to first of all understand, if you want to become a developer, what is it that you want to develop? Whether it's you want to develop for, whether you want to create content, whether you want to create apps, whether you so it starts with there. And then there are these different tools which are already available on the market. You need to do a little bit of research, and then that's just the way ahead.
Got it. Got it. Um, Coming back to an application within the XR space, the teleportation application, right? Um, your thoughts about it, and as we all see and believe that COVID has really speed up the process of getting to the digital teleportation a lot faster as compared to the way it was going before COVID. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so see, so far, I mean, I thought that post COVID, maybe that we will get into the spatial world very easily. Because but somehow we still been restricted by the 2D world. We still stuck to Zoom. We still stuck to these 2D meetings. So teleportation obviously opens up huge possibilities. Now there is two ways to go about it, where there are startups who are still leveraging teleportations with, maybe like in a way where they're creating avatars, and the avatar has more freedom, but it's still a 2D world. But then what you and maybe others are trying to do is possibly get a holographic uh, avatar of you. Now that obviously is going to be fantastic, but I still see that we are technologically bound with it, where the bandwidth, 5G, uh, the fidelity of, like creating like seamless teleportation, we still maybe a few years away from holographic teleportation. And all those technologies need to create that marriage. I mean, for example, if you're doing teleportation where you're creating maybe with your depth sensing cameras, and if it's we still are not able to, you know create a complete holographic uh, 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 avatar of a person at this point in time. We are doing it, but it is still not mainstream, because there is a lot of problems. All once all of those are binded together, then maybe the teleportation, where what we actually think about as teleportation, the Star Wars world, where Princess Leia, that this thing, that I think is still maybe at least 3 years away in my point of view, because the 5G needs to come in. Depth sensing capture has got to become a little bit more seamless. How you integrate it, and those packages, how you downsize it and integrate into, whether it's AR, MR experiences. is still going to take time. But I think you would be able to shine a little bit light more on it rather than me, because you're the one who's vested in it and been. So I've been doing a little bit of photogrammetry, and I've been experimenting a little bit of depth sensing camera, but I've not even daisy chained three depth sensing cameras, because that itself is so much problematic. Maybe you will be able to shine light on uh, creating a complete digital asset, a holographic avatar of a person. How do you go about it? Is it uh, because with one depth sensing camera you can get a little bit of it, but if you need the entire, do you have like an algorithm created where it creates the backside of the asset, the individual? How do you what are the problems according to you, and how long do you think it's going to take to have a seamless, I'm talking about like a proper holographic avatar for teleportation?
So for this question, we went like really back within the problem statement itself. Like we started questioning: Do you really require a depth sensor? Do you require internet? Do you require, like, many of these questions? We were asking some fundamental questions in terms of, there is a standard way to go through a depth sensor, right? Is there an alternative way that we can think of by doing that kind of exploration? And we felt that okay, there are multiple ways why wherein you can bypass the current limitations, the internet limitations, the depth sensor limitations, the processing limitations, and at least have the first level of experience which becomes like an introduction. I think for the first level of introduction, which is still a seamless introduction to a holographic conversation, is about 6 months from today.
Right.
Completely proper is about probably a year from today. That's based on the work, the R&D, the development that we are doing on our team side. This is something I'm quite excited about. One, because the technology itself opens up so many doors. Like every time I speak to someone, I always say it's like the computers are going from a caterpillar phase to a butterfly phase, wherein from a 2D screen to a 3D screen, it's a huge difference. Communication is one biggest change wi- that will have a huge impact, from your entertainment to your enterprise applications to your hospital, medical, healthcare applications. It is something that will have a huge impact.
Completely. So yeah, I'm super excited about that. I mean, almost all of my AR/VR episode, I mean, I become extremely repetitive because I keep on talking about the opportunity presented by spatial computing. And that how we're gonna break the barriers of the 2D world and get into the spatial world. So I'm just waiting. I mean, when does it start going mainstream? Because that's where the proof of the pudding is, because I'm sure that beside you there's so many other guys, like, who doing some you said about just maybe using like standard cams, and there's this exceptional guy I'm trying to interview. There's this guy called Howley. He is doing something really cool in the space, of bringing teleportation and holographic avatars. So yes, I'm super excited. But when it goes mainstream is obviously, I feel from my, it's at least 3 years, three to 5 years away when it starts going mainstream. But once it does, it's gonna open up huge economical benefits, because the entire world at that point of time is going to go into the spatial world, and then sensors are going to be everywhere. Each and